Hello and welcome to the Voice of Todd. I'm Tom, and today I thought we'd look at the new episode of The Mandalorian that dropped a couple of days ago. This is called Chapter 9, but it's the first episode of Season 2. And this is the first week that it's dropping. I think these are going to be dropping weekly, by the sounds of it. I thought we'd touch on my overall thoughts of Mandalorian Season 1 first, before we actually got into the new episode. To me, The Mandalorian was good. It was probably the best Star Wars we've had for a good number of years. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni obviously know what they're doing. They have Star Wars at heart, and they really seem to enjoy the idea of this series and what they're going to do with it. I was always disappointed with The Mandalorian as a character. I know it's hard when you don't see the actor's face. And Pedro Pascal is an incredible actor. He's a very charismatic actor. I love him as the Red Viper in Game of Thrones. Oberyn Martell is my favourite character, and he portrayed him brilliantly, to my mind. Really brought that character home and to life in the series, so I was expecting more from him maybe. I don't think Mandalorian is as charismatic as I was wanting, and he certainly doesn't seem as badass a bounty hunter as I was expecting. Again, I could just be thinking we're going to get a Boba Fett series, which is, I think, what this was meant to be at some point, maybe. I don't know if you could have somebody else play the Mandalorian and it would still be the same. I haven't really worked out, even now on 9 episodes in, if Pedro is really making this character shine. I feel like they're using the Mandalorian as your eyes into this different world, post-Empire of Star Wars. And it doesn't really sit with me, certainly through Season 1, when you've got characters like Cara Dune, played by Gina Carano, who was incredible. I thought she really stole last season, and I thought Cal Weathers' Grief Karga was excellent for the episodes that he was in. Nick Nolte was great. There was some really good side characters, I think, that stole the show in the first season. I also didn't buy into the Baby Yoda thing. It looked naff, it felt naff, it never really seemed to move very well for me. I know it's a puppet, but it didn't capture my imagination, which is maybe why I didn't get into the season as much as some of the other people did, because Baby Yoda took off and everybody seemed to love Baby Yoda. It's still everywhere now, even a year on. I still don't get it, even after this episode, but we'll get into that in a minute or two. I think overall Season 1 was pretty standard. It was fine. It showed a different way of portraying the Star Wars universe, especially after, post-Empire, post-Jedi, but post the fall of the Empire. You got a real feel that the galaxy is in chaos. It felt familiar enough, but it was dirtier, it was a little bit more chaotic. It could really go places, I think, this series, if it's given the chance to breathe. The music for me was the standout last season. The music was just incredible. Really well done. But what really hooked me into it was the finale. Giancarlo Esposito's Moff Gideon really has that charismatic kind of you don't know what he's going to do kind of vibe to him. He has that menacing feel. Not quite as Darth Vader did, but it feels like he's going to be the big bad, and he really deserves, somebody of Giancarlo's talents really deserves that kind of role, because he's incredible, and he really does take centre stage when he's on. So I think that for me, and the build up to Season 2 wasn't really there, but I'm starting to look forward to it quite a bit more. The hype did start to get me last week, I'll be honest, but I didn't pay any attention between Season 1 and Season 2. I know there was a lot of rumours about various different things. Don't really know much about the story, so I'm going into this blind. But let's take a look at Season 2 Episode 1. It's called Chapter 9, and it starts off with the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda going into a fight club. The world still feels really dark and gritty and chaotic and quite lawless. I didn't really understand why the crib that Baby Yoda was in was open when the Mandalorian's a wanted man and everybody wants Baby Yoda. It didn't seem very sensible to me. And in this fight club, it's almost like the arena in Knights of the Old Republic. Big fan of Knights of the Old Republic. So it's nice to see that, and there's quite a few references to that series in this, which is really nice. Mandalorian still feels quite naive. I don't really buy that he is this badass, intelligent bounty hunter at all. Gets himself into a bit of a situation, has to fight his way through. I thought the choreography for the fight was really good. Good use of some hand-to-hand combat, a little bit of weapons in there. That really impressed me. Really good opening scene and sequence, especially for the start of a new season. I'm just going to scroll down on my notes here. So he beats up some thugs, and then the thug leader, he tells him to go to Tatooine to find another Mandalorian, because the Mando has to find Baby Yoda's tribe, his species, and take him home. Basically, that's the mission that was given to him by his clan master. So he heads out to Tatooine, and it looks like Tatooine, the iconic Star Wars planet. But we're back on Tatooine. He lands in the bay that he landed in back in season 1 with the mechanic. I don't remember her name, but they had a bit of a conversation. She went all doughy-eyed with Baby Yoda. The puppet looked better, actually. Baby Yoda moved this season. Maybe they've got it down a little bit more. It definitely felt more like a real thing. But he says that he needs to head out to this settlement that's been abandoned for a while. Old Mining Connolly, I think they said. So he jumps on a speeder bike with Baby Yoda and heads out. You see in the montage of him trying to get to his destination that he camps with the Sand People. It's nice to see that the Sand People aren't hostile to everything, and we're getting a different side, as it explains sort of in this story as we get later into it. The Sand People are just a group of people trying to survive the wilderness of the planet as well, which is nice to get that more than they're attacking everything and the murderers that you get very much in the prequels. So that's nice to see that different side of it. We do meet Timothy Oliphant's character. He's Cobb Vanth. He's wearing Boba Fett's old Mandalorian armour, which is a really nice little nod. Mandalorian demands this armour back once he realises that Vanth isn't a Mandalorian. And then they have like a high noon style standoff in the bar, both of them standing there ready to quick draw and gun each other down. I thought this was shot really well. I'm a big fan of westerns, and this episode specifically really nails that western vibe. I love the idea of Cobb Vanth as this marshal in a town, this lawless town who's trying to keep it together, and he's a good guy but he'll do bad things kind of thing. I really thought that was good. And then as we get to the point where they're almost going to draw on each other, the ground starts to shake and a crate dragon appears. Firstly, the crate dragon looked very much like a miniature sandworm from Dune, with how it moves through and these big jaws just coming out of the sand and disappearing. It was really cool. The effects in this episode were really good. Specifically the practical effects. But I very fond of crate dragons because of KOTOR. There's a brilliant mission on Tatooine, no less, where you do have to hunt, or you can choose to hunt a crate dragon. So they're feeding off my love of the original trilogy and then the wider kind of older Star Wars that was still around when Lucas was in charge. Certainly with this episode it feels. But it's nice to get the Knights of the Old Republic references in. After the crate dragon disappears, Cobb Vanth agrees to give the Mandalorian the armour if he helps him hunt the dragon. So they set off. You get a glimpse of Vanth's backstory, how he got the armour by bartering it from Jawas after his settlement was attacked. He then uses the armour to go back and gun down the raiders that were there, and he's protecting the settlement ever since. I think that this is something to do with the comics, or maybe there's a new book going into Cobb Vanth, maybe under a different name. I don't think this is particularly a new idea that somebody was in Boba Fett's armour and took on this role of marshal of a settlement, but it was nice to see, and Timothy Olyphant, I think, did the character justice. The speeder bikes look cool. There is a little nod to the pod racing in episode 1 with one of the designs of the speeder bikes, which is nice to see. Regardless of how you feel about the prequels, it's all nice to tie it all in together. There's a moment where the duo, so Vanth and the Mandalorian, camp with some Sand people. There's a bit of tension between the two. It goes into sort of I think there was a battle or something in the settlement where there's Sand people trying to raid them, and they killed the raiders, and it's setting up tensions quite nicely. It just shows that the world is populated and there is other things going on while you're not there, I think. But the Sand people want the Great Dragon gone as well, so they agree to help hunt it. The people in the settlement need to help as well, so you have this big group of Sand people and settlers taking on the Krayt Dragon in the end. The battle action sequence with the Krayt Dragon was shot really well. To kill a Krayt Dragon, you need to hit the underside, so its stomach, where it's weakest, and blow it up with a load of explosives. I think that's the same as in the game as well, so that's quite a nice little tie-in. But obviously the Krayt Dragon does take out a lot of the Sand people and settlers. Very cool to see it in action. The acid spray didn't look quite as good, but you know, it works. It's nice to see, and especially thinking that this is a 45-minute TV show. It's cool to see real practical CGI and the effects that they use put into something like this and really thought out well. So I quite enjoyed the battle. There is one sticking point with the Krayt Dragon, which actually, before we get onto that, the Krayt Dragon itself, they do say that it lives in an old Sarlacc pit, and it is specifically referenced that Sarlaccs can be killed by other creatures. One of the characters says that they didn't think a Sarlacc could be killed or something. So that's maybe a little nod to where the Jawas found Boba Fett's old armour, maybe. But as the battle goes on, towards the end, the Mandalorian has a big hero moment plan. I didn't like this at all. As someone who is tasked by his clan master to look after Baby Yoda and to do everything that he can to find Baby Yoda's people, it felt a bit silly that he would then say to some guy in Mandalorian armour, look after the child, I'm going to have a hero moment and kill this thing. But he sort of stays with the bantha covered in detonators, gets eaten by the Krayt Dragon, does the Mandalorian, and then as it explodes, jetpacks out of the creature's mouth. But it felt stupid. For me, it would have been more interesting if Vanth had done it, being in Mandalorian armour with a fully working jetpack himself, and having already said in the episode that he'd do anything to protect his settlement. I think he would have been a better choice narratively, and maybe just for that hero moment of this new guy who I'd love to see more of. It's probably me just personally connecting more with that character. It'd have been cool to see him doing it, and then he can be celebrated as the marshal of the town, as the Krayt Dragon killer. But they kill the Krayt Dragon. There's a really nice touch with the Sand people finding the pearl, the Krayt Pearl, which again is a nod to Knights of the Old Republic. And because they've successfully killed the creature, Vanth gives the Mandalorian Boba Fett's old armour as payment. And next thing is, or the final shot, is the Mandalorian on a speeder with Baby Yoda in the back, shooting across the dunes of the desert back to the settlement in his ship, and he cuts to a cloaked figure with a gaffy stick and a blaster rifle on his back, and the figure turns around and it is Tamara Morrison with a shaved head and a scarred face, watching the Mandalorian travelling through the desert. Tamara Morrison played Jango Fett in episode 2 and is the face of the clones. It was put into canon in episode 2 that Boba Fett was a straight clone of Jango Fett, allowed to age properly. So it's obviously Boba Fett. He's back, he's still on Tatooine, maybe looking for his armour, maybe he's going to be more of a mentor figure to the Mandalorian, make him a slightly more intimidating bounty hunter. But it's really cool to see Tamara back. He was good in episode 2 with what he was given to work with. I really liked his Jango Fett. I'm interested to see what he does with an older Boba Fett. Looks, as he's scarred, beaten up. He was always a dark character anyway, but I think that's maybe some strong foreshadowing for what we can expect through the rest of the season. I thought this episode was great. As I say, I went into this a little bit hyped up, but not really sold on the series as a whole. This has turned that around. I thought it was shot brilliantly, the effects were amazing, the music again, just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Really nails that Star Wars Western feel. I thought Timothy Olyphant's Cobb Vanth was incredible. I would love a series of just him in the settlement. If we can, Disney, please. You've got all the money in the world. You can fund that, I'm sure. This is a side note. Cobb Vanth. Is that a Firefly reference? With Jane, maybe? Could just be that I see Firefly everywhere I look, which maybe isn't a bad thing. But yeah, I thought Timothy Olyphant was great. The Mandalorian seemed better. He seemed to flow a little bit more. He didn't seem quite as rigid to me. Maybe a bit more likeable. I don't think that's anything different that Pedro's doing. But I seem to connect with the character a little bit more. It was sad that Cara Dune wasn't in there. She was a great addition in season 1, and I would like to see, and I'm sure we'll see more of her in season 2. But you could have easily have fitted her in as part of his crew now. But maybe they just didn't want to overcrowd it for the first episode, and by not having her in there, it really gave Cobb Vanth a place to shine as the second to the Mandalorian. That was cool. They did say in an interaction after the fight between Vanth and the Mandalorian, they did say that they'd like to see each other again, so hopefully we will get more of Timothy Olyphant in the future. But I think what's holding me over and keeping me excited for next week is this idea that we've got Boba Fett, who, don't think he is a true Mandalorian, but it's his armour and he's obviously alive. We've got him eyeing up Mando. Maybe there's going to be some conflict there. It could be a mentor, setting up a mentorship. But as Boba Fett isn't a true Mandalorian, there could be some questions that come into that from there. I really want to see how that plays out. I really want to see more of the Broken Empire and Moff Gideon and the Darksaber and where they're going to go with that. I have heard a few rumours about certain characters from certain animated shows that could be popping up in this, but as I say, I've not really looked into it. I don't want to at this point. I want to be surprised every week, and I'm really looking forward to the next episode. But I think it started off really well, and I'm glad that we have something that drops weekly that we can enjoy, and I hope it continues to grow and to build on the formula that they set out in season 1 and continues to impress me throughout season 2. But that's where I'm going to call this one. I'd love to do more of this stuff. Let me know if you're enjoying them. Let me know what your thoughts are if you've watched it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.